Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Tony Dudzik, Pick Guardian.
Rob Chafe, Mad Cow Amplification.
Why are you doing typing hand signals?
I'm
when
warming
you're
up
doing
my
that?
hands.
Were you sending yourself an email of what
John
you're...
turned the heat off in here, apparently.
Yeah,
So
I
I'm
guess so.
freezing.
Hey, everybody, it's me, Todd Novak. Welcome to the Guitar Knobs podcast. We're thrilled to death that you're listening to our show. This is the pre-NAMM show. We're not going to spend all of our time on that because we're going to spend a lot of time after that. So, but just to give you a point in time, a point of reference, as you will. We have a tendency to talk about guitar stuff. That's what the show's based on.
Yeah.
We want to hear the backstory. We want to put the spotlight on builders that are doing interesting things.
Yes.
People that maybe, hopefully, in a weird way, maybe you've never heard of. That's not really necessarily good for our guest yet, but it's good for you because now you know the guest.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Sort of.
Guest, who are you?
Mark Bartel from Baltimore, Maryland.
All right. And you own?
Bartel Amplifiers.
Right. You make them as well as own them. You're
yeah.
It's like the hair club guy.
He's the guy.
The man of many hats.
Yes. We are going to be talking to Mark about his homegrown, handmade boutique amps, Bartel Amps. Where can people go find these on the internet?
That's right. My website is bartelamps.com, or check me out on Instagram at Bartel Amps. Facebook, too.
That's awesome. You have to excuse me. When you said that, I took a drink of this horrible stuff that Tony's making me drink.
What do you mean it's horrible?
I felt like I was going to throw up.
Good. More for me.
Oh my gosh.
If we only had video for you,
Oh,
Mark.
that's terrible. I was really trying to hold it together, Mark. I apologize. But yes, everybody go over to Instagram, find Bartel Amps, and peruse. I think you're going to be very happy.
Just go ahead
with
and
what
buy
you
one.
see.
You know?
Just go get one. Yeah, skip the podcast and just get one.
Just buy one. Just take our word for it.
We are going to have a great time talking to him. This is somebody who has a lot of knowledge that we're going to dip into, and it's going to be really fun. So, first couple things, announcements. Tony, did you have anything in particular?
I have no announcements.
Okay, I'm just checking.
I know, because you usually just skirt right over me.
I kind of do. We have another announcement. Last week we highlighted our friends Rick and Cindy.
Yes.
Out in New York. So we've got two of our former guests who are on the podcast. And
Yes,
they
they
are
were.
launching something exciting that you're going to want to check out. Rick Kelly, founder of Carmine Street Guitars, and Cindy Huledge of Cindy Guitars have a new guitar and music-related podcast called Bones of Old New York. Sounds very interesting because they've sold a lot of guitars to a lot of celebrities. Guitars made out of historic wood and all kinds of stuff.
There was a documentary of the same name.
There is a documentary.
There is.
Yes, and it was really good.
Yes.
I encourage you to go check that out, too. Anyways, so they started out this podcast, and they just said, hey, would you guys mind just, hyping us up a little bit as we start off? And I said, absolutely. And if you listen to them in a while, they might do that for us, too.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and drop that little promo in right now.
I'm Cindy Huledge, and I make guitars.
I make guitars too.
I know that. Let me introduce you.
I'm Rick Kelly.
Never mind. But we make more than guitars now. We make podcasts.
What's a podcast?
Well, you know how our producer, Mike the Mike, comes to the shop and records us hanging out with all our friends?
Oh yeah, like when Steve Gunn came by and told us that great story about losing his guitar in Russia. Or Dylan Keefe from RC Playground brought in that cool bass I made him with wood from the Chelsea Hotel.
Exactly. We hand make custom guitars right here at Carmine Street Guitars in New York City's Greenwich Village. And we build them out of 200-year-old wood from these famous old buildings. That's where we got the name of the show, too. The Bones of Old New York.
Yeah, we made guitars for all kinds of people like Bob Quine, Bob Dylan, Lou Reed, Patti Smith, Lenny Kaye, Jeff Tweedy, and even Mike, our producer.
It's true, I love my guitar.
So listen to our show, The Bones of Old New York. Stream it wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Favorite, what now?
It's like a radio show on your cell phone.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
All right. We need to get into what's going on in our music world this week. We're going to start off with the besweatered Tanya Bolonsky sitting right in front of me, and then we're going to check in with Mark Bartel.
Very nice. Well, I was inspired after we had our show with Andy Fuchs.
Yes.
And I wanted to try one of the pedals that he recommended on his 4 on the Floor.
Oh, yeah, cool.
So the one that really captured my attention was...
Wait. The Keeley 30 millisecond.
Wrong.
Oh.
The Digitech Mosaic.
The
straight.
faux,
Yeah.
We should have guessed that one.
Yes. So I thought I bid on one that was on eBay. I put a max price of $125, and somebody at the last second sniped me at $126. So I cried a million tears. Then I went over to Reverb and found a bunch of others that were, reasonably priced, but of course I have to have a bargain. Come on.
Yeah.
So there was a guy that had one
In China. One guy in China who had one you bought.
No.
Oh.
So this gentleman in California, Folsom Prison, maybe. It's in Folsom, California, so I don't know. Maybe he's making them.
Okay.
But anyhow, he had one, I think, for $150 shipped. And, of course, I had to get something a little better. Plus shipping.
Okay.
So I offered him $130.
Uh-huh.
And so for around $140 I've got one coming my way.
Hey, fantastic.
It looks like it's in good shape, has the box, power supply, everything.
Cool.
So I'm really anxious to give that a try.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. I went down the 30 millisecond rabbit hole because that actually, it's not like, oh my gosh, what is this amazing thing? But apparently, everybody else recognizes like he did something that isn't readily duplicated. In fact, I went on to the to Line 6 and looked up the Helix thing to see if there's anything in the HX Stomp that would kind of mirror that, and the discussion was long and inconclusive, which was really surprising. So
I'm surprised you can't tweak a delay and
that's the whole thing is like he did a little something extra in there that even people on the Helix are kind of struggling to nail down. So
all right then.
Anyways, we're going to check in with Mark Bartel right now. Mark, what's going on in your music world this week?
Well, I guess I'm going to have to let you down a little bit because since I'm trying to make a living as an amp builder, I don't get to engage in music that often.
Well, that's fair. Are you listening to anything that you particularly like, or?
Well, I'm an old guy. I listen to lots of stuff, but a lot of the older stuff always comes back. I've been listening to a lot of Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer for some reason, and trying to pick out some of that stuff on guitar when I get 5 minutes here or there.
Yeah. Do you are you a vinyl guy or?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool.
In fact, I don't even have a CD player.
I don't either.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
I think I have one.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So do you make trips to the record shops and dig around, or are you all set?
No, we're always digging around, but it's not the way it was. All the good stuff is sold out or overpriced these days.
Yeah.
You know how it goes.
Yeah.
It's hard to find anything reasonable.
Yeah. Oh, we're lucky. We have. It's funny. We've got like 5 fantastic record shops and no guitar shops. Wrap your head around that, guys.
Yeah.
That's bogus. That's garbage. And we're surrounded by a whole bunch of venues. Tons of music venues around here. And not a brick and mortar to save our life. Shameful. Well, anyways, okay, cool. Yeah. I remember the only thing I really ever caught about Yes was Owner of a Lonely Heart, of course, which I thought was fantastic.
That's not Yes.
Well, hey, that's all I caught. That's all I'm saying, because I was an MTV kid, so.
Nah.
Well, the cool thing about Yes, if you see them play back in the day, Steve Howe's playing this big Gibson ES5 Switchmaster, I think it was. And he's only got access up to, I don't know, 12th or 14th fret, but somehow he makes it work and gets his fingers over this big fat body to play at a pretty high playing speed. It's pretty inspiring to see him do that.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, and of course, Chris Squire. I mean, as far as bass players go, he's probably one of the top of the heap.
Oh, yeah. One of my favorites. Amazing.
Too cool. What's your favorite song by Yes?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, they have so many good songs. Starship Trooper I was listening to today. I'm like, that's pretty great. They have this section where they make you wait for the guitar to come in, and they make you wait, and they make you wait. And I'm like, yeah, they thought about it. They knew people wanted to hear that guitar line come in.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. That gives us a little bit of vicinity of it. Who's another artist that you're a big fan of?
Oh, gee. Well, see, that's the thing. I don't really, I'm kind of a music person. I don't just listen to one genre or another. I really listen to everything, blues, rock, jazz, classical, anything that's got heart and soul in it.
Yeah. I'll match you on that. I recently scored a really sweet double album. No, it's not. That one's not a double. It's Oscar Peterson live in Copenhagen in 71, I think, with like this 3D pop out thing in the middle. It's fantastic. Yeah, it's great. Anyways, okay. Well, let's move on to Rob.
Yeah.
What's going on in your music world this week?
All right. So it ties back to my work,
checking
though.
Your Tinder over there? What's going on?
Yeah. Checking the OnlyFans account, seeing what I got here. I'm making money.
Yeah.
Now, talk about something that Music Week, it ties into my work, because I don't have anything personal going on this week. But this is a phenomenon I've been seeing more and more. I don't think I ever talked about it on the show. It's happened once already this week, happened twice last week. One of the occurrences last week, I had a guy call me. I had just redone his 72 Pro Reverb, 72, 73 Pro Reverb, went through it, caps, everything. When it left, it was perfect working order. The noise floor on it was ridiculously low. It was insane for an amp of that vintage. And he's a younger guy, he's early 20s, and he sends me an email a few days later going, man, I'm getting a lot of hum from this. So I went down the usual thing. Hey, do you have your Wi-Fi router sitting next to it?
Is your phone on it?
Yeah, you know, ground loop. You plug it in.
Yes.
Pedals from different outlets and a home that was wired in 1910 or He said no. It's it's just the amp alone. I've tried in different locations. So I'm like, well, by all means, bring it down. I said, who knows? Maybe it's a tube or just whatever.
Yeah.
So he rolls in with it, and I'm apologetic. I'm like,
it's a big amp.
Yeah, it's big. Yeah, it's 212. It's a twin. It's a lower wattage twin, basically. So he rolls in with it, and I'm saying, well, I'm sorry you're having a problem with it. Let's see if we can find it real quick while you're here. So I look down at the amp as I'm plugging it in, and I'm not joking. He's got all the controls set at 10. All of them. Master, channel volume, all the EQ, set at 10. Ooh. And I'm like, is this how you've been running the amp? He's like, uh-huh. And I'm like, okay. And I turned it on, and I mean, it's whisper quiet. It's like, shh. Even at 10.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's a tube amp from the 70s. It's going to have some noise. He's like, oh, well, none of my other amps have done this. I said, what do you had? And he lists off digital equipment. And I'm like, dude, and he was really nice. He's like, okay, well, I wasn't sure. He's like, it just seemed weird. And, so this is where I'm going with this. I had one this week, a Marshall new DSL-20 guy calls me and says whenever he puts in a pedal in the effects loop, he's getting a hum. And I'm like, okay. And same thing. I've run him through all the troubleshooting stuff. He's like, nope, nothing's doing that. I want to bring it in. I'm like, okay, great. Brings it in. And I turn it on and dead quiet. It's a high gain amp, dead quiet. I put one pedal in the effects loop, and there's like the tiniest amount of, just the tiniest, barest little, you hit a note with the amp on like half and you would never hear this hum.
Yeah. And
it turns out he was putting a pedal on top of the amp, and the leads were going by the power transformer and picking up. There we go. But I measured on my scope. It was less than 40 millivolts peak to peak of 60 cycle, which is I can't explain how quiet that is.
No, but let me ask you this: does your shop are you conditioning your power at the shop?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So most people don't have power conditioners in their homes.
No. But he's standing there. He said, "Yeah, that's the hum I'm talking about." And I put my head down to the speaker, and I hear, just the tiniest. just the tiniest little sound. I'm like,
And for being around amps as long as you have, that's a terrible amp impression.
well, I can't hum 60 hertz that quietly.
Mark, can you
no,
do
it's
that?
quieter than that.
I can't, but I can sympathize with it because people are very particular these days in low volume situations, and that's why every single time amp that goes out, I literally stick my head inside the back of the amp, tap all the tubes, and do this and that, and make sure there are no buzzes, rattles, or any of that stuff. And you got to be really particular.
Well, and what I'm not conditioning this to or attributing this to is just like this guy. I said, well, is this your first tube amp? Yes, it is. What's been your other gear? Well, I've got a Helix, I've got this. And it's people that have never had tube amps before, have been playing, let's say 10 years, and they've had the digital gear that is on or off. And they buy a tube amp, and it's got a little hum, or like Mark said, a tube might rattle. Older guys are like, yeah, it's a tube amp. What do you expect? Where some of these younger guys or people I haven't played much are like, well, yeah, it's got this tiniest little bit of noise, and you're like, well,
yeah,
and
Do you ever say, son, get out of here? I'm gonna beat you with your own neck.
I mean, what are you gonna do? You just
Interesting.
Yeah, but it happens. I mean, it's at least a weekly occurrence now. And
But these same people have never had the fun of playing a tube amplifier and then sparking across their lip to a microphone. That is that is
no. That would freak one of these guys out completely. But, yeah.
Indeed.
So I don't know. That's an interesting little thing. So here's a PSA for everybody out there that owns a Katana or a Helix or something that's thinking about buying a tube amp.
Yeah.
You're going to get a little bit of noise.
Well, but if you take the ground plug out of the, just break that part off the plug, it'll be fine.
Oh, okay. All right. You can send your lawsuit letters to Tony Dudzik at Pick Guardian.
Yeah.
Just break that off.
Yes, indeed. me.
Todd.
Oh, yeah, Todd.
Todd. There was a lot of things going on, and I have to pick one. And I think I was really thrilled that Tony brought in his Rickenbacker. The 330.
Well, it's technically an RM 1997.
Okay, so Rose Morris.
So it's a 330 with a standard F hole instead of the slash.
Yes, and a different tailpiece.
Well, that's a vintage tailpiece.
Yes.
That because it's a vintage reissue.
Yeah, gotcha. Anyhow, I really enjoyed playing that, and it was just fun. I never played one.
Well,
I've only
it's
played
different.
your solid bodies, which I wasn't really a fan of, if I'm being perfectly honest. But I really enjoyed playing that quite a bit, and I didn't think I was scared I wasn't gonna like it, but I did like it, and it's so freaking cool looking. I mean, Ricks are just specifically the 330s, in my opinion. Everything else is like,
Yeah, anything with the sharp point.
But I like that. Yeah.
I like those too.
Yeah, very cool. So I had fun playing with that, and one of the reasons I wanted to do that is I'm so used to playing my guitars and my rig for the music that I'm making, and so I guess part of me gets a little bit worried about, like, am I just digging myself a very specific hole with this very specific shovel? And I said, I want to try a different shovel, and it was fun.
It's
and
good to have a lot of shovels.
Out. Yeah, indeed. I need more shovels.
And then when you're ready to start your Beatles cover band.
Yes, that's not going to happen at all. Anyway, so that was a ton of fun. And anyway, so we got a big amp guru here, big amp builder guy. We want to learn all about these amps, and so we're going to cut to the chase on that one. After this delightful message from Tony. Tony,
Yes.
yes, freeform our thing. No,
not
that's
that
not
one.
going to work.
Okay.
Yeah,
Todd.
yeah, I do
How is he these days?
very well.
Well, if you're like me and most of our listeners, you probably have pedals. I've got that Mosaic coming in, hopefully Yeah, it probably won't be here before we leave, but regardless.
Yeah. We're getting ready to see a whole ton of pedals. I'm very excited.
Yes, indeed. But you know what goes good with pedals?
Bagels.
Rob, you stay out of this.
Yes, but no.
Go ahead and tell the world, Tony.
I'm going to tell you about Tour Gear Design patch cables. Now, these are the flattest with the smallest pluggies.
Yeah.
And they come in so many different sizes. And if you have, let's just say you got a pedal that has a top jack and you want to connect it to one that has a side jack.
They got that.
They got that.
Top
or
jack,
if you
top
want to
jack,
do top
they got
jack,
that.
top jack. So these are great pedals. They will save space on your pedal board.
Patch cables.
Did I say that?
No, I did. You said pedals. I'm helping you here.
Go
to tourgeardesigns.com and load up your cart. Once you get to that cart, you're going to enter the guitar knobs, and you're going to save 10%.
No, you're going to save 15%.
Oh, thank you for that correction. 15% from our friends at Tour Gear. So we want to say thank you very much for sponsoring our 4 on the Floor that we're skipping today, because our guest is an amp guy. He's a plug into the amp and let her rip guy, and we're going to learn all about that right now.
That's right. Sorry to let you guys down, but the only effect that I have is an old EP2 tube Echoplex.
There you go.
Well, that'll work.
Now, do you use just the preamp, or do you use the whole thing?
Well, honestly, I don't use it that often. I don't want to wear the tape out, and I always figure, well, I'm just screwing around here. Why do I want to wear it out? And I don't have any good patch cables anyway. Where do I get those?
You go to Tour Gear Designs.
Yes, they're in Canada. They're in Canada. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyways, well, let's find out all about Bartel Amps, and you're building them out of Maryland, and you've got a pretty recognized. I mean, it's a sort of a singularly recognizable amp.
Can I stop you before you go there?
Oh my gosh! Yes.
Well, no, this is important because Mark's history with amps didn't start with Bartel.
Well, I got to start somewhere. But
let's start before then.
I appreciate that, Rob. You got all hyped up when I said, "Hey, we should talk to him."
Yeah.
And he said, absolutely. Actually, if you don't mind, Mark, I'm going to quote what Rob said.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, hang on.
I'll apologize in advance, Mark. I don't remember what I said.
Hang on.
This could be really good or really weird.
He said, Yeppers wouldn't miss Bartel. He's an obsessive genius.
Okay. Yeah.
Obsessive genius.
Yes, that is the short version of a much longer version.
One of those two.
So, Rob, why don't you introduce the whole thing here?
Well, yeah, let's start. So, Mark, tell us about your history. How'd you get started in amps?
Well, I could have done that.
Well, but you didn't. You wanted to start at Chapter 7. I want to start at Chapter 1.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about your history, how you got into amps, and how you got in the industry.
Well, I mean, the origin story kind of thing is probably exactly the same as every amp builder you've talked to, so I'm not going to kind of take a lot of time with that. But if you want, I could just go through some quick little here and there.
Yeah, exactly. Quick 4 and 1.
Just from the beginning, I was, I always built stuff when I was a kid, and I used to help my dad fix vacuum tube TVs back then. That was kind of a thing people did. And, this is when I was like probably 10 years old or something. And, so I got to learn how to read schematics and do basic technician skills, soldering and all that stuff, and some debugging and this and that.
Let me ask you this. Did you used to, with my dad, we're probably about the same age, we used to take the tubes out of the TV set and go down to the Western Auto where they had the tube tester, and we would, check the tubes out. Is that something that you did as well?
Yeah. Everybody has those shops. Went to a race or electronics and brought the bag of tubes and tested them and all that. And I mean, the funny thing is back then how, today everyone is so safety conscious, but back then it'd be, well, why don't you check the voltage on the picture tube? And it's like 20,000 volts.
No warning labels or anything on the stuff back then.
Enough people get sued and they start to be, safety conscious.
When it wasn't until I started kind of learning more about amps and stuff that dawned on me, because I remember as a kid trying to mimic my grandpa and my dad, and my hands were all up in there in the back of the TV, all over the place. Mm-hmm. And I guess I got really lucky. Although I did stick a screwdriver into the socket trying to help my dad install a washing machine.
Oh boy,
That explains it.
Wow.
Yeah, and this is the best part. I did it, and I don't really remember what happened right there. And my I looked down and my hand was all black, and my mom was freaking out, and all I could think of was to ask, could you see my skeleton?
The cartoons.
Like the cartoons.
No, it doesn't work like that, Todd.
No, it's more of a slow cook.
Yeah, I got thrown back.
All right.
Anyway,
yeah,
so-
we've all had that, experience getting one of those big shocks, and
Yep.
but eventually you get enough of them that you get cautious enough so it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
So,
But,
so back to your story. Yeah.
So all those television sets were built what they call point-to-point wiring, like they do on the tube amps these days. So I was familiar with all that stuff, and after a while, he decided he didn't want to fix televisions anymore, and and he said, you don't really want to focus on these tubes because they're going out, and you should learn more about transistors. So, that's why I kind of got into solid state stuff then. And right around that time, he's like, well, I got all these tubes. You just got a new BB gun. Well, here, I'll give them to you. So, I took care of all those old RCA 6L6s. And I like the big ones, like the 6L6s. I could really hit because the little ones are too small to hit.
Oh my God.
But
Yep.
left them in piles. So
That was your
Anyway.
401k right there, Mark.
Yep. Don't remind me. Wish I had those now. I got to build an amp next week with new old stock and try and track some down. Got any leads?
Not at anything affordable, no.
Well, this one doesn't really matter if it's affordable.
Then
So
yes,
that's
you got
quality.
leads.
Yeah, then
Yes.
money's no object.
Yes.
Yeah.
So at what point did you start, building, repairing, doing whatever with guitar amps? How did that start?
All right. Just a real quick segue into that. So after that period, I started focusing on solid state design. I would build hi-fi amps, solid state hi-fi amps, and then when I started getting into guitar, started building really horrible solid state guitar amps and all the effects of all sorts. And I was into microprocessors and stuff too at the time. So I built this digital delay that had like a Z80 and had, it was a pretty big board for considering what it did. And that's another thing, is that I never quite had the parts I needed to build what I wanted to build. So I had to kind of make do, which kind of helped me learn a lot of stuff. Like on this digital delay I wanted to build, I needed an A to D converter, but I didn't have one. I had a couple of D to A chips, so I built an A to D successive approximation A to D with that. And all that's the kind of stuff I'd have to do pretty commonly that through that period. But so that kind of led up to eventually I bought my first real amp, which was a twin reverb. It was kind of junked out, but I made it work. And I'm like, wow, this really sounds great compared to the crap that I was building. And so I started to get into tube amps a little bit. And, at the same time, I was kind of shifting from listening to hair metal to blues. So I kind of worked out. And, since I had a repair background, I would sometimes do repair jobs there was Bearsville Studios was just up in Woodstock. And sometimes an amp would come in that needed a repair. So, we'd do that. And that kind of led me into wanting to do my own thing. And because at the time I was listening to, the older, Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and stuff like that. And I wanted that sound, but none of the new amps were really getting that at the time in the 80s. you know, and so, you know, I've heard a lot of great tweed amps from friends up in Woodstock, but, you know, I wasn't about to go buy one. So, you know, I had a bunch of parts and just kind of started on the journey to try and build my own amp. And that's, you know, that's kind of where it all started.
Cool. And what was the first amp company? Can you mention it?
The first amp company?
Yeah.
Tone King.
There you go.
And
the onion starts unpeeling.
yeah. I mean, that came about, you know, I was pretty young at that point, filled with ambition and not realizing how hard it would be to get into such a venture. But I was really driven to try and make it work and try and come up with my own design and build a company around it. And you know, at that time I was playing in little bands here and there, so I got to try my prototypes out here and there and really get a sense for if I'm going in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And you know, I really didn't get a lot of feedback from people, so I didn't have much of a confirmation that I was going to get anywhere. So where that all kind of happened was I put together my first real looking amp, and I'm like, I gotta get somebody's eyes on this, ears on it, and see if we can, you know, get some feedback if I'm doing the right thing. So I went down to this. It was kind of an amp show down in New York City that they used to do every year back in the 90s. And I just, you know, I was just nobody. I just showed up with this amp, but it was turquoise and white and looked a little crazy. And just trucking it through the place, it drew a lot of eyeballs just because it looked crazy. But I did get some people to plug into it and got some pretty good connections there. That kind of led me to be able to start the business and find some dealers and find some help with the marketing side of it. Mm-hmm. And it all kind of went from there.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So Tone King would have started what was it, early 90s?
93.
93, okay. And then you owned it and ran it for how many years?
Well, when I started at Tone King, I was still working at IBM. But luckily, in 1994, just a year later, they closed the plant and laid everybody off. And I decided I'd give it a go and see if I could make this work as a career.
Sure. We've both been laid off by IBM.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Where were you?
I was at IBM iX, which is the digital experimental arm and advertising and stuff like that. Cognitive learning or cognitive, you know, all that stuff.
That's way fancier than what I was working on, the System 390 stuff, the last of the dinosaur mainframes.
Well, we have that, if nothing else.
There you go.
Okay, please continue.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to see where we're at. So,
Tone King.
I'm just not sure if I wanted to
pulled it through the show. You got good response. At some point in time, I do remember starting to hear an awful lot about Tone. Like that was like, it was all of a sudden everybody's talking about Tone King amps.
Well, I mean, what happened was, I think from that first walkthrough, I hooked up with this marketing company that was willing to take a chance on me and help me find dealers and you know, kind of do things the right way. So they hooked me up with some really good dealers. Washington Music Center, Chuck Levins down here in Washington, and we got into Rudy's in New York City, and some other cool dealers. And the Rudy's hookup, that really was pretty productive because almost right away, you know, we somehow he had got an amp sold to Lou Reed and to Mark Knopfler. And actually, Mark Knopfler played that amp up until fairly recently, that old 94 Imperial.
Oh, that's cool.
And that was amazing. I mean, it was. I didn't think I would hook up with A-list stars so quickly and easily, but that's kind of where my good luck ended, because for the next 30 years it was a hard slog trying to reach out like that. Even today, it's almost impossible.
Yeah. So you had Tone King for almost 30 years, you said?
Well, I mean, it's been 30 years since I started it, but I think I was separated from Tone King around 2016.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
whatever that adds up to.
That's about when I started also, I think, hearing like, well, if you're going to get a Tone King, you got to get the pre, and then it's a pre-post thing that everybody was starting
Always
to waffle
happens,
and fight
yeah.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it went through various periods. The initial stuff that I made in my house in Kingston, New York, those were really funky. I have the prototype that I built in Kingston here still, and it sounds like a 50-year-old. Well, I mean, it's 30 years old now, but it sounds like a really old, broken-in amp. Real raw, real good for that early blues stuff, and it really evolved. You listen to the Imperial, the first one. Like I said, it's super loose, has almost no headroom, and it over the years it kept evolving, kept getting a little more clarity, kept getting a little tighter, and to the point where it became the Imperial Mark II, where it's pretty, pretty different than the original. So there is a whole series there. And, I was one of those amp builders that couldn't resist experimenting and changing things all along the way. And that's why you'll find amps from different periods sound a little different. And,
Yep.
but just to track the progress of Tone King, how it went. So went from my basement, moved to Baltimore, and a series of little shops here and there, getting booted out for playing Rage Against the Machine too loud and this and that. And, when we went to Baltimore, I had a couple of employees, and I discovered what probably a lot of amp builders do, that once you get to the point where you've got maybe 2 or 3 employees, it gets real difficult because your costs escalate much faster than your revenue escalates. So, yeah, we had kind of a rough time there until about 97. And then, in fact, at that point, I kind of had to lay everybody off, take it down to just myself, and get a job in the semiconductor industry to keep things rolling.
Wow.
That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
And I worked at that job for 11 years and learned a lot of great stuff. I did analog circuit design and did a lot of work with circuit simulators and things that I'm using today to develop new products. So that was a good experience, really.
That's cool. So then, so somewhere around the late 2000s or early I guess it'd be 2010s or something, you started to look at doing Bartel amps, or?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you how things proceeded from there. So I was working a full-time job, coming home, building amps until 4 a.m. kind of thing. Eventually, I kind of went to part-time, and I had a couple of employees for Tone King. It was on the way up again. And then around 2009, I got approached by an investor who was putting together this venture called Premier Builders Guild, where he was assembling all these different boutique brands under one big umbrella. And there was us, there was Two Rock, and a bunch of guitar brands, Fano, and B3, and Cole, Saul Cole, and a couple others as well. And so that kind of let me see a whole different side of the musical industry, because I was at that point, it was a bigger deal. We got to see how companies really operate, and so that was actually a pretty good experience too. Went from 2009, ended in about 2016, where it went out of business and had to sell off the brands. And Tone King, as you know, probably went to Boutique Amps distribution, and they're doing a pretty good job with it now, I think.
Yeah, so you actually, not to get too technical, but you sold off the brand when Premier came in, and then they actually transferred it to Bad. Is that what happened?
Yeah. I sold them the brand in 2009. And
Gotcha. And did you stay on as any sort of advisory or, engineer or anything, or?
Oh, for Boutique Amps?
Or for Premier?
Oh, yeah. The whole period during PBG, I was, head of the Tone King division there and did all the amp design. And in the beginning, I was production manager too. And we had a pretty good sized shop, about 7,000 square feet right here in the same complex I'm in now. And it just, I don't know, it just didn't seem to make sense to run this big shop here and run the big Two Rock shop out there. So it kind of consolidated everything out there.
Okay.
Which was great, because then I got to go out there every once in a while and keep up with those guys.
Okay.
It was a lot of fun.
So then in 2016, you said that it was then transferred to Boutique Amps. And then at what point did you decide to strike out on your own again with Bartel?
Oh, immediately. I mean, this is what I do. This is the only thing I'm qualified to do at this point. I've been out of industry for so long, I couldn't possibly get a job doing what I was doing before.
So when
this is what I love. This is, it still kind of blows my mind that when I was a kid in my dad's shop, this is what I did. And I always thought, this is what I'm doing now. I wish I could do this forever, but eventually I'm not going to. But eventually came back to it.
Yeah. So in 2016, how quickly did you get, Bartel up on its feet? What was your first model? What did you start doing?
Oh, it took me about a year and a half of development before I felt confident in moving forward and starting the business.
So you were trying to not just an updated version of a Tone King thing. You wanted to come out with a new product, Oh, yeah. I wanted to leave, go way further than I did with Tone King because, there were certain constraints with Tone King. It was more of a price point kind of design process. And, you had constraints that, I wanted to see if I could do, I wanted to do the best I could, regardless of how long it took to build or how much the parts cost. And so, I literally started from scratch, and there isn't a single piece of circuitry in any of my amps now that's even similar to what I was doing with Tone King. Wow, that's impressive.
Looking at some of your, we perused the biography and everything, just trying to get a little familiar with who you are. I mean, you're making some special stuff, and you're not, it's not like you're probably turning out hundreds of amps a year or anything like that, I would imagine.
No. I mean, the amount of labor that goes into each one is crazy. I don't know, one of the big models, somewhere 45 to 50 hours between the three of us.
Wow.
So, we're not making hundreds of amps.
And I guess to describe this, what most people probably aren't understanding, wouldn't think about, you do all the cabinet, making a house, cutting everything, Tolexing everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
what else is involved in that?
Yeah. I mean, my job involves lots of things. Like I am the man of many hats. I do all the cabinet making, all the woodworking, all the upholstery, and then I turn it over for assembly. On the chassis, I do all the wiring. Now I have the mechanical done. Nate does mechanical, Mike does boards, and I install the boards and wire them up. Still, that's a big job. That's like a 10-hour job.
Yeah. Before we get too far away from the cabinets, I think it's probably worth mentioning, since you took time to mention it in your own, about section, you tended to focus on like, maybe rethinking how a cabinet works. What are the qualities of a cabinet? How could you improve on that? Could you talk about that a little bit?
Oh yeah, well that's a whole can of worms. I mean that was probably that's work started back in '93 or in 1990 really, when I was putting together prototypes for the first Tone King Imperial, and realized that when I moved the speaker to a different cabinet, it sounded radically different, and that started the whole ball rolling. That's gone for 30 years plus now. And, along the way, I've learned a ton about how to design a cabinet to get a certain kind of feel, a certain kind of sound and response, and, put everything I learned into the cabinets I'm doing now. And that all happened during the Tone King years as well. But I could never kind of get my point across about that. I put half my effort into cabinet design and research, but nobody really wanted to hear it. Yeah. Even today, I don't think it's I think it's accepted, but it's not maybe seen as important as I think it is. Well, and you can see like there's the tone wood debate with Paul Reed Smith and all that. If you can't even convince someone that the wood on a guitar matters, how are you going to convince them that the wood on a speaker cabinet matters?
Well, let's take a minute to try to do that because, our audience is full of quite a wide range of people who are just starting out, buying amps, who are collectors, and I mean all the way up to collectors who have tons of amps and have been playing for years and years and years. And I think we're always amazed, even at ourselves, of like, oh wow, we hadn't thought about that, or why does that matter? We don't ask about these questions. So if you've got the floor, like why does that matter?
Well, to me, I see the speaker cabinet as just another part of the tone shaping mechanism. We ask the amplifier to shape the tone in a certain way, and we don't expect that it ends there. We expect that the speaker is going to shape the tone in a certain way. It has certainly not. Guitar speakers aren't anywhere near flat, and I just don't think it should end there. I think that the resonant properties of the cabinet and various other acoustical properties of the cabinet are a big part of the equation as well. And to get where you want to go, though, you kind of got to gain a lot of insight that isn't very easy to gain because you're not trying to produce a cabinet that's a hi-fi cabinet. You're trying to produce a cabinet that gives you a certain sound and feel that's hard to quantify. So there's a lot of experimentation that goes into that, and just a lot of trial and error.
I think you equated it to an acoustic instrument, and when you start reading or hearing somebody talk about this, it does dawn on you. It's like, you try to get the best amp sound, but then it's. I mean, it is an instrument on its own that I think aside from just what speakers in it, that's that's where that discussion usually stops.
Yeah, the cabinet becomes an acoustic amplification of it too, and impacts it.
Yeah. I mean, the sound of the speaker cabinet doesn't end with the driver. Mm-hmm. No matter how hard you try to make the cabinet inert and not contribute, it always contributes. It's going to.
Well, and how I compare it to people, I'm like, have you ever plugged in a speaker and just sat it on your bench and plugged it in? It doesn't sound anything like it does in a cabinet. There's a reason for this, people.
Yeah.
Hey, in particular on your cabinet, not to beat a dead horse here, but I think your baffle design is probably what catches most people's attention. How, why, where did that come from?
Well, I mean, that started way back. I think I threw them out now, but back when I was first getting started, I was a real experimenter. So I realized that cabinet wood kind of made a difference from one cabinet to the next that I built, different woods, and it sounded different. So I'm like, let's learn about this. So I built kind of a test cabinet that I could easily replace the baffle in and out. And I made baffle boards out of tons of different woods, hardwoods, plywoods, just about anything I can get my hands on. All kinds of, mahogany and pine and different kinds of cedar and Sitka spruce and
Blue spruce?
not that one.
Thanks, Todd.
And so I went through this process where I recorded each one and then reviewed them and tried to draw conclusions from them. And, that kind of gave me a little bit of insight, but it also gave me insight into the idea that you have to be careful in your experimentation with speaker cabinets like that, because sometimes there'll be a red herring that'll throw you off. The test isn't a valid test. And I ran into a lot of that early on too. And, as far as how that led to the baffle design I use now, the early Tone King amps used a solid pine baffle, just like I'm using now, but it was a solid 16-inch tall across the grain piece of wood. And that moves a lot with changes in humidity. So I had to attach it in a way that allowed it to move quite a bit. And the only way to do that, the way I did that, it didn't really make a good solid connection with the cabinet. So it wasn't really an ideal situation. And so then I moved on to the Baltic birch baffle, probably, I don't know, in the 90s, late 90s sometime with the Tone Kings. And you can definitely hear the difference between them. And, but we stayed with that for production reasons all the way through. And now, when I started my new company and started experimenting with cabinets again, I was kind of going for something a little different than I was going for with Tone King, where with Tone King, I kind of couldn't make up my mind whether I wanted it to be, have this intense, powerful clarity, or if I wanted it to be deep and resonant. And I kind of tried to skirt the line between both and ended up a little more towards the stiffer, more aggressive voicing. So I wanted to back off on that with my new stuff, because the kind of sound I really like is that deep, lush, resonant sound, like an acoustic instrument.
Yeah.
And that's what led to all these. You'll see some on my very early first posts on Instagram. You'll see some of the early cabinets I did where I experimented with all kinds of things, the orientation of grain on certain panels and various methods of bracing, and to come up with the cabinet I'm using now, which looks like a very simple box, but it performs exactly the way I want it to. It's kind of performs in a more complex manner than you would think.
Nice.
From looking at it.
Cool. I appreciate you going deeper into that. I am hesitant to ask this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And if we don't want to do it, we don't have to. But you have quite a bit of knowledge about this, and for people that are maybe experiencing their first amps, what is one thing that you might say to be wary of, look out for, or try to bypass in lieu of something better? I don't mean a brand, but like if you're talking about a cabinet or a combo, if you look in there and it's like, if it's all press board, run away. If it's got too many screws, run away. If it's covered in, I don't know, what is there a certain bit of wisdom that you can pass on?
Well, here's the thing. I don't necessarily think of things in terms of good and bad. I just think of things in terms of this sounds this way and this sounds that way. Even though I don't care for cabinets made with Baltic birch and stiff, like 3/4-inch Baltic birch baffles, that doesn't appeal to me. But I can definitely see how it would work for some kind of music and for some kind of people. So I think there's a lot of there are not a lot, but there are, a number of different types of cabinets out there, and there's a perfect use for each one.
All right. Well said. Well,
I like that answer.
I said, I needed to ask because we.
Yep.
I'd be remiss if we didn't go like, oh, this guy knows a whole bunch about this stuff. Don't ask him anything.
I'm just trying to be wishy-washy and not piss anybody off.
All right. Well, so let's get into the actual amp stuff here, and then we'll spend our time focusing on that. You also talk about a lot of innovative elements that you were trying to incorporate into those. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I can talk about kind of the circuit design aspects of it, if that's what you're looking at.
Yeah, and maybe relate them to what, tell us about whatever models you're offering and, what's unique about each one. And
yeah, I mean, if you're specifically looking for innovative stuff, I mean, the cabinets, yeah, I tune them a certain way. A lot of people don't do that. I don't know if I'd call it innovative. It's just kind of what I do.
Yeah.
But the result is a cabinet that sounds a lot different than most cabinets you're going to find out there. As far as the electronics, amp design isn't rocket science. So I'm not going to say this is some brilliant scientist here developing circuits. But I did some things that I thought worked for me that make the amp do what I want and make it more flexible. For instance, I wanted it to be kind of a single channel purist design. I didn't want it to have too many knobs, too many bells and whistles. I just wanted it to be plug in and rock kind of thing. But in spite of that, I didn't want it to just have one sound. There are a couple of particular sounds I like to get, and I wanted to get all of those somehow out of this amp. So I came up with a tone control circuit in the preamp that has kind of a much more complex effect than a typical tone stack in a Fender or Marshall or something.
Okay.
And what you'll find is that it just has treble and bass controls, but almost every point on the treble and bass control, range of settings is useful. You turn them down all the way. That's actually a useful setting. It gives you this kind of plexi kind of sound when you turn it up. You turn treble and bass up all the way, which is normally pretty unusable, and you get, kind of a nice shimmery Fender kind of sound. In between there, you can get kind of Vox sound or a Tweed sound, all coded into those two controls, because they not only adjust the EQ curve, but the gain as well. So it sounds like it might be hard to kind of comprehend how to dial it in, but it's actually more intuitive than you would imagine. If you just sit down with one, turn the controls, you'll say, there it is. That's what most people tell me anyway.
Nice.
So there's that. And the other thing was just the master volume circuit that I did some extra things to make it really maintain that cranked amp sound and feel at a low volume. Because I had done a lot of work with attenuators with Tone King, starting out with the big Iron Man.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
It started out as a huge box and had, 5 or 6 transformers in it because it had a really pretty good inductive load that if you trace it out, it really looked like a real speaker. And, it's expensive to do that. So the thing sold for a lot of money. We didn't sell that many of them, but it was a really cool box. But that made its way into some of the amps. I did a crazy thing. I had one of my dealers, I won't say who, always gives me these ideas that kind of end up being like not that great ideas. But he's like, why don't you do a 212 Galaxy cabinet with a built-in attenuator? So I took that big Iron Man, the original one, with that, so all those transformers and kind of shoehorned it into a smallish box that you could mount inside the speaker cabinet. So the cabinet weighed like 100 pounds or something.
Jeez.
And almost nobody bought it. We sold maybe like 8 of those. But eventually, I still felt the need to give people the ability to control their volume level because it was getting more important at that time.
Yeah.
So it made its way.
You kind of saw that a little bit earlier. It sounds like in the development.
Yeah, well, it all started with the Tone King Metropolitan was the first amp I made that had a way to manage the volume. It was kind of a really bizarre master volume. Here's how it worked. Oh God, it was whatever. But the phase inverter was configured as a differential pair with a current source in the common cathode circuit, and by adjusting the current in that current source, you could control kind of both the amplification and the clipping point at the same time. So it kind of worked like a master volume.
Oh.
And
I
at the
actually
time,
kind of understand that. Thank you.
yeah. Well, don't bother trying it. It's not that great. Because I had, in order to make that work at super low volume, I needed the way I was controlling the current source. I used a couple of op amps, and they had to have extremely low offset voltage. So I had to use these op amps were like $25 a piece.
Oof.
And but I don't know. So one of the crazy things you do when you're young. But that was my first go at managing volume level. Then we went to the Iron Man, and then the Iron Man made its way into the amplifiers as kind of a more practical implementation, and kind of improved a little bit over the years here and there. But even at the end, I was still feeling like it's kind of maintaining the harmonic balance, but I'm kind of feel like I'm 20 feet away from the amp when it's low, that low volume.
Yeah.
It loses the immediacy. So I put a lot of effort into developing this master volume circuit that I'm using now. And
so it feels live wherever you're at on it.
yeah, well, it maintains that presence and that immediacy, it's along with maintaining the tone and harmonic balance. And I had to use a interstage transformer with the phase inverter and a couple other things.
Yeah.
And it's kind of elaborate, but I think it's really effective. And so that's the other, if you call it innovative, I don't know, but that's another unique feature anyway.
It sounds pretty innovative to me.
I think a lot of musicians don't understand, like, because I get this from the repair thing. They say, well, they'll bring me whatever amp, and they'll be like, well, can't you make it do this, this, this? It's like, well, every action you take, there's no ideal situation. You're going to have to give up something to get what you want. Meaning like, okay, so you need master volume in here. Well, it's not going to sound exactly like a crank twin when you turn the master down to 2. It just can't happen. Use certain things you can do to, like Mark's talking about.
The manual says it can.
Well, the marketing team at X and Y
Tilt.
Yeah,
Tilt.
Exactly. Yeah, this knob will do amazing things. Where it's like, well, you have to, yeah. So, but like to Mark's point, is designers like him constantly trying to reevaluate things and try to get it a little closer, a little, build upon what's been done in the past.
So you've got the models that you offer. Let's talk about those right now.
Sure. I offer 3 models: a little 12-watter called the Sugarland, 28-watt Starwood, and the 45-watt Roseland.
Okay. Wait, time out. Sorry. Before you go into all the amps, I'm intrigued because you, most people who are deep into the circuitry don't necessarily, a lot of people, not most, a lot of people, they don't get the whole, like, the other end of it, the not the marketing. I don't want to be that dry, but you with each of your iterations of your amp buildings, you've kind of said, oh, these are venues, or these are models of cars and stuff.
Oh, you mean, yeah.
Yeah, like I love the way
equating
that
them to
you've
the
actually
names. Okay.
named and your naming and the aesthetics that you have on your amps
So
historically
it's
are
not
fantastic.
Just
I love
the
it.
Bartel 12 watt and the Bartel
Right.
28 watt. I guess.
Right,
Yeah.
he's got a thematic approach to it, and I think that's really cool.
Right.
Thanks. Yeah, well, I think at the point, I think I ran out of car names with Tone King. So,
There you go.
and, I had to leave the rest of them to Steve Carr. So,
Oh, yeah.
but yeah, the thing is, right from the beginning, I went a little overboard with the styling on the Tone King stuff. And with my new stuff, I just wanted to signal that, it's all about the sound. It's all about the build quality. It's not just a fancy trinket for you to look at. It's really about what's inside. So I wanted to come up with styling that was a little more pulled back, a little more reserved, but still distinctive. Mm-hmm. And the naming, yeah, you're right. I figured that kind of makes sense. It's not drawing allusions to some mythical creatures or something, and just the styling in general. I didn't go crazy with it. I just wanted it to look, good and look like I put some thought into it, but not something that's going to go out of style in 10 years or.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that I didn't know the backstory about the television, but whenever you look at these amps and even a lot of the previous Tone King ones, it's like you can't not see your early work in that on the television sets, and there's some car inspiration too, especially with the control faces on like the Kings. No, wait, what was the British voice one?
The Royalist.
Yeah. So
Previously,
awesome
the
looking.
Majesty. Thanks. Yeah, they came out with a Mark III or something.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
Yep.
It's real good. Sounds good.
Yeah.
I haven't heard one in person, but
So 3 amps you're making now, are they, do they share the same DNA, for lack of better terms? Are they kind of stepping
No, they're-
stones on each other, or completely different? Or
yeah, they're very much the same. I wanted to make it very simple. I wanted to make it like the way the Fender line was in the 60s. You had a Princeton, Deluxe, Super, but the preamps for those were all pretty similar, but I'm actually more similar. I'm identical from model to the
Oh,
one
that's
model
great,
to the
yeah.
next. So it's really just the only thing that differs between them is the output stage, output transformer, and the size of the cabinet. They even use the same speaker.
oh, no kidding.
So I just wanted to make it very simple and easy to understand my line, because there's a lot of complex things to understand about the amp itself. So let's make the line simple.
What's really interesting about that is if for an artist that might lock onto the sound that you're trying to create, every venue is different, and you would still have the ability to say, I'm going to get the exact, the same DNA sound out of this, depending on, if you're on you got them named after big, medium, and small.
Yeah, so you mean like an artist could have like the Roseland for the big gigs, and,
Yeah.
and also carry on the road to Sugarland. For,
Yeah, exactly. That's really interesting.
Well, they could, but if you have that range, just get the Roseland, because the master volume's really good.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah.
So I was kind of curious. Obviously, the Sugarland, that has a pair of 6 V6s. That explains the lower output. But it's based on what I've been able to see is the Roseland and the Starwood both have a pair of 6 L6s, yet one is 40 some watts and the other is 28. What's the difference there?
The only difference is the way they're biased. The Starwood is cathode biased. The Roseland is fixed bias. They're both biased at 65%. It's just, that's what you get.
Okay. And it looks like, are you using exclusively Celestion Alnicos or?
No, I've gotten away from the Celestion Alnicos. I'm using the Fane A60.
Ah.
I started out with the Celestians. In fact, my website probably still shows
Celestion
the
Alnico Blue.
Yeah, I see a lot of blues and
Cream.
there's some creams.
Yeah, I'm not really a webmaster. I haven't touched that thing since 2018.
Yeah, me too.
Someday. But as soon as I heard the Fane A60, I was just like, wow, this is unbelievable. And I immediately switched all models to the Fane. Mm-hmm. Have you ever tried one?
Yeah, well, Todd has an old Sound City that has a pair of old Fanes in them.
Yeah.
And,
A blonde one. If you know anybody, I'm looking to,
trying to offload this thing.
Oh, my God.
What? I'm not trying to offload it. I'm just, hey, for somebody who's out there going, I'm like, man, I wish I had this amp.
So that's
I don't know,
really
but I'm really looking for a Concord. I don't know.
That's what it is.
It is.
Oh, you're messing with me now. Oh, did you guys text him or something?
No, it would have been great if we did, but no, this is all Mark.
Jeez, you got me so bad.
He must have listened
respect that.
listened to an old episode where you
That's
tried to hawk
right.
it.
Yeah.
I've heard it many times.
Well, word's getting around. How about that?
Oh, that's fantastic.
Okay.
So so obviously the Fanes that you're using now are the reissues.
Who's
they're-
making
in
the
fact,
new Fanes?
Fane, as far as I know, I buy them directly from the UK.
Okay.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, okay.
Fane Acoustics. And then these aren't really reissues. The A60 Alnico, it's an Alnico speaker, and it's not one of the ones that would have been made back in the 70s or something. It's a new design, and it's really wonderful. I think it's a direct competitor to the Alnico Cream,
Okay.
but to me, it just has more richness to it. It's got a better feel. Feels more like a really old Alnico. The way it, you just keep. The more you push it, the more you get out of it. It doesn't hit that brick wall like the Celestion does.
Yeah. Well, with Alnico, you're speaking Tony's language there.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, me too.
Speak away.
I got a pair of them.
Yeah.
Hey, before we wrap up here, I want to point out something that when I first saw that you were doing with the Bartel, I was just like, this guy is kind of nuts. You make your own knobs?
Yeah. I don't know.
Turret boards.
Yeah, but knobs. He molds his own knobs. I don't know. Actually, I don't know any other manufacturer that's making their own knobs.
Well, some of the guitar builders are doing it, and I don't know. It's just that there's this particular chicken head design that I really like, and I just couldn't find a supplier. I still can't find a supplier, so I ended up setting myself up to mold them. Nate molds them now. I don't do it personally myself, but yeah, we do a lot of fabrication here. We mold these little. We call them wire trees. Yeah, they got holes in them, so you put wires through them. We mold those. We fabricate our own like back panels and all kinds of little doodads here that add to the build time.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
But I should really. I mean, the knob thing is kind of crazy. The amount of time it takes to make a set of knobs.
I'm glad to hear you say it too. Because when I say it's crazy in a great way.
Yeah, but here's the thing: I can't stop now because people will say, "Oh, look, cheaping out."
Right. I need to get the Bartel amps that were still the in-house molded knobs because they're different. That's what you're gonna.
Yeah.
That's exactly. I mean, it's 100% like that.
Yep.
Yep.
Too cool. Too cool. So you're kind of sitting on this right now. You're in a happy place with this. Are you still innovating? Or are you like, nope, this is where I'm going to stay for a while?
No, I've been doing a lot of development work for the past couple of years, but nothing's come to fruition. But this year it will. Yeah, I mean, I've been running these same three models since 2018. So it's really time for some new stuff, right?
Sure.
And
sounds like a tease.
Yeah. I'm going with you. I'm right there.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much I can say because my dealers kind of get ticked off when I start talking too much about new stuff. But I mean, I'm looking at building a smaller sized amps, even smaller than the Sugarland.
Oh,
Interesting.
Can't say too much more than that, but there's a lot to be said about it. It's going to be super cool. Been working on it for a long time.
Is that something maybe middle this year it'll be out, or are we going to have to wait longer, you think?
Probably fall, because the way I go, during the week, it's all production work.
Yeah.
So 12, 15 hours a day. And then the weekends, it's all catching up on, business stuff, doing accounting, bookkeeping and stuff. And so I get very little time. If I were able to just buckle down and design, it would be a lot faster. But we're probably talking like fall, or maybe even just next year's NAMM.
Okay.
ooh. Well, we'll see you there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to go again, because I haven't been there since, I think, 2018 or 19 was my last time I did it. And then, it was the year before COVID.
Yeah, we were at that one.
Yep.
19, right?
That was my last one, too.
Oh, really? And now you're all going back?
Yeah,
Yep.
we're going this year, so.
Leaving tomorrow.
Man, is this going to be the year that NAMM really comes back, or what?
No. That's gone forever.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
Don't
Compared
say that,
to
Rob.
what it used to be.
Well,
Well, I keep seeing more and more people posting, we'll be there. Here's our booth.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
we just got invited to the Gibson pre-thingamabob at the show.
Oh, in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking like what it was like 80s, 90s.
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
where it was,
nothing's
like,
the same as that.
Massive.
So
Yeah.
take it easy. Rob.
Pre-internet, So,
yeah, certain things will never return.
No.
yeah.
100% true there. Well, Mark, we really appreciate you talking to us about, like, what you've been doing and why it's special. And
Oh, man.
we love
Thanks for the
hearing.
opportunity.
Yeah, we love hearing about what goes into the craft and how people are thinking about it, because it's so much more refreshing than people just making something to make something. So they
Or just making a copy of something that's
making a
already
copy
been
of
done.
something,
That's,
exactly.
Yeah.
We do have a very special segment we're going to talk you through here, which you should be familiar with.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Tanya?
That's right, Todd, because at this point of the show, it's a little segment, little fun game we play called Would You Rather?
I feel like you
That
gave
was pretty
extra
good.
effort because of Mark's on the thing. 'Cause-
I was feeling it.
yeah. Or you've been holding it back.
I've been holding back on you.
Yeah.
I pity the fool.
Yeah.
So, this week's Would You Rather is just something to make your brain work a little bit.
Okay.
So you're getting ready to go out on the road for a few months, and you need to decide whether you're going to go digital/modeling or analog/tube amplification.
Okay.
Now, the analog gear, the pros are, of course, they sound really good.
Yeah.
But that comes with a cost. That, analog gear can break down. Maybe costs a little bit more to carry on tour. Will require a maintenance and service. I know a guy in Columbus.
Yeah.
If you're coming through. Will require you to pay for a tech.
No good.
And backline rental for your fly gigs. All of this stuff is coming out of your cut, your personal cut from the band. So it's going to cost you.
Yeah.
Or, your digital/modeling stuff. Now, in my humble opinion.
Oh boy! No!
You can't color this before.
Okay, I won't color it.
You just put the facts out there.
Okay, I'll put the facts out. Digital/modeling apps all sound great.
Come on.
So the pros are you get the same gear every night, and technically the same sound every night. Perfect operation. And no tech needed. Well, maybe until it blows up.
No. So that's the beautiful thing about digital gear is like, and what we're talking
You're
about.
adding too much color,
We're talking like a helix or something.
Yeah.
You put 2 helixes.
Yeah.
In a suitcase that weighs about 10 pounds.
Yeah.
You don't need a tech to carry that.
No.
You don't need a tech to set it up or to.
But what happens when they blow up?
You pull out the second one.
That's your backup.
And the show
And then when that one blows up?
It most likely won't. But anyways, yeah.
So, and I should say, by the way, this is brought to us by Elsie, the Mad Cow from Mad Cow Amplification.
Oh, I'm going to use that.
Elsie the cow.
Now, we're talking, not little nightclub tour.
No.
place.
And this is a real scenario
tour,
that
sure.
a lot of bands, I would say the A circuit bands, the big bands, they still incur costs, but to incur costs to carry a backline of 4 amps per guitar player and a small rack or 2 pedal boards or something versus a band that's going out
Pumpkin.
as the
That's what
opening.
they do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Pumpkin's like, okay, well, we're charging
They had a
$30 a
rack
ticket.
of 12.
Right.
So.
but maybe their support act has to make this decision because they're only going to be out
Right.
with the Pumpkins on 12 dates and they're going to go over here for 12 dates and here. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, if we have to either cart our own stuff and pay for,
Yeah.
that's huge money and fly gigs.
You're talking on stage combos and stuff at that point.
Yeah, and fly gigs, well, then I'm at the mercy of we request a Marshall, yada, 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 and we show up and it's a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe.
Yeah.
That's really what happens. So do you take that chance and do that or you just bite the bullet?
So we're a support band.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
All right,
right.
that's a good way to look at it.
Something
All right.
that where you have to make this choice. Yeah. Or do we go digital where it may not be my tube amp that I personally prefer, but it would be a consistent product every night. We don't have to pay out. We don't have to rent backline. We just show
Right.
up with our, little Pelican case of stuff and
Yeah. Okay. Oof.
All right. So your
Yeah.
choices.
That's really hard because it really depends on the kind of music you're playing.
good point.
That's true.
Big time.
You have to
It's
consider
not that hard.
Mark's like,
I know a guy.
is this a decision?
Okay, Tanya Belansky's gonna head us off first, and then we'll go to Rob.
Let's go to Mark second.
Mark.
I want to hear Mark's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
No, you gotta leave Mark. Mark is good. We'll do the normal order. Come on
Okay.
now. Okay,
Normal
go
order.
ahead, Tony.
Well, as much as I hate to say it, because at heart I guess I'm a cheap bastard. I think
No,
I'm-
not at heart. You just are a cheap bastard.
Yeah. That will be on your gravestone.
I mean, I beat $20 off of a guy for a damn
it'll
pedal.
be blank with
I'm
a
sorry.
Sharpie
Yeah,
message on it.
your DH Gate account name will be on your.
I think as the practical matter, and after Rob's, I guess, extensive explanation and things, it does kind of make more sense. If you are indeed a support act and you might have some fly dates and you might have some other things that you're not touring with the headliner,
Or cramming in a smaller van
Or,
while the
yeah.
other guys have the bus.
yeah. So I think the digital / modeling stuff option would, I hate to say it,
He's
but
cringing as he goes through this.
I mean, but it's a matter of economics and practicality. So
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but that's my choice.
Massive flight cases, just to, oh, geez.
And plus, you get room for an extra couple of guitars.
There you go. All right,
There you
Rob.
go. All right. Oh dear God, this is a hard one.
You came up with it. You knew the answer.
No,
before you
Elsie
walked
came
in
up
the-
with it.
Elsie came up with it. I had no prior knowledge. Okay. This is actually a tough one. Oh, this is terrible. Okay, I would. Yeah, no, I'd have to go digital too. I would have to
Okay.
for that type of a tour. I just can't imagine paying out, like I said, tech and cartage and backline rental and then you do backline. You show up to a festival and it's like, well, crap. I wish I had my Helix rather than
Yeah.
dealing with whatever they just gave me. So
Yeah, that would sell
that'd
it
probably
for
push me over the edge.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, that hurt.
Well, Mark,
I don't see how this is even a hard question at all. You see the way I build my amps. I don't really care about practicality.
That's true.
So whatever it costs, it's got to be rock and roll. And I'd say if I'm going on tour with my Ted Nugent cover band, people are gonna expect to see 6 Super Twins on stage. So It's going to have to be real amps.
And behind those 6 Super Twins is a single helix.
Yep.
Oh, Lord. Okay, so that's 1 for real amps, 2 for faux. And what are you going to go with? Come on, Todd.
See, this is the problem. This is why I said, like, it depends. I think if I was in a 2-guitar band, if I was in a band with like really heavy effects or something, no brainer, I'd go digital on that. But it's not. It's just me, and I'm so dependent on the response I get from my, the amp, the immediacy. Not having everything, like, I don't have everything compressed. It's like I need attack. I need, it's like all that stuff, and it would really throw me off to play it because I've never not played with an amp in a live situation.
And if your whole point is being a support act, you want to garner new fans, it won't be a representation of your band either.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go tube. I'm gonna say, you know what? What do I got to lose? No, I'm not going to get some crazy vintage thing that I can't possibly replace. But
you're going to take your rig. And
I know a guy. I just got introduced to him, right, Mark?
That's right. But another thing is your Birdland isn't going to feed back right with the helix.
Right.
This
exactly.
is 100%.
Yeah. Yep. And I do rely on that. Like when I switch over to the Hagstrom semi-hollows, like,
They got a pedal for that now.
Yeah.
I know. It's not the same. But
I know.
I'm all about that too. I hear you. But yeah.
It's
devil's
tough.
advocate
It's
over
tough.
here. Well, so we got 2 and 2.
Yeah.
2 and 2.
I think, no, I might change my game halfway through the two.
The third festival you hit where they give you a God knows whatever, you're like, I'm buying Helix.
Yeah.
Whip out the credit card.
Yeah. It's a really good. I do like the idea of like having a go rig though. Like I think that there's merit in that. So yeah, that's a tough one. Super tough. Oh, super tough.
Well, thank you, Elsie.
Yeah.
Yes,
Very
thanks,
good question. Especially asking that of one of the most premier boutique amp builders in the country. That was genius.
Well, you
Rob.
can feel Mark over there. It's like, why are we even talking about this?
You guys are stupid.
Boy, did I waste my time. Oh, dear.
Oh.
Well, we need to say thanks to a handful of people, and then we are going to bid farewell to our good friend Mark here.
That's right, Todd, because at this point of the show, there's a special group of people we love to thank. These are our executive producers.
Yes.
Now, an executive producer makes this show possible. How do you become one? Very easy. Head over to patreon.com/the Guitar Knobs. Check out a couple different levels in which you can participate. Become a friend, a hero.
Yes.
A patron. Of the podcast. Each level comes with some very nice thank you gifts and, giveaways. Yes, that's right. We do giveaways, and you get qualified just for being a patron.
Yeah.
In addition to all this great stuff.
Yes.
All the good stuff.
Yes.
There's one thing more.
Right. Rob?
Gets to have your name read on the thing.
There you go.
There it is.
Look at, hey, no cue card.
That was almost like
amazing.
It's almost like a Christopher Walken kind of delivery there.
Your cue card.
I was trying to sound clueless.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to do right now. So special thanks to these executive producers. Vader and Pedals, John Halverson, Rick Calhoun, Trevor Gunberg, Elad Mizrahi, Mike D, Richard Kendall, James White, Motander Guitars, Anthony Gemolero, Bill Gola Guitars, John Esterly from Rare Buzz Effects, Anthony Lathrop, Stefan Lamb, Michael Sanchuk, Ken Sayers, Darren Gregory, Tom Barazin, Rusty Steaton, Ralph Gottschalk from Wonderful Audio Technology. What? Don Kloss, Gregory Randall, Brett Hogarth, Eric Hammer, Stuart George, Michael Furman, James Bell, James Romer, Cameron Pampas, Trevor Ellenberg, Christopher Logan, and John Sebastian.
Yahoo!
But wait, Todd, there's more, because there's a special group of executive producers. We call them our Grand Poobahs.
Yes.
These fine folks have a fez to wear upon their head whilst listening to the podcast.
And at the same time.
That is correct. So special thanks to these Grand Poobahs: Tommy Manasco, Ricardo Higuereta, David Kaminga, Brandon Wound Pickups, Hex Matos, Michio Murakishi, Bob Crouch, Jack Cadian, Sam Jett, Tyler K.C. Rhines, LSJ Music Company, John Williams, James Pennington, Steve Keys, Cody Foster, Science of Sound, Brian Robinson, Jonathan Jeruzik, Corey Nigro, Michael Van Zant, Tim Nowak, Jonathan Daly, Martin Cliff, Sean S. David Poe, Billy Spitfire Unlimited, Congregation Gear Demos from Good Demos, Paul Von Eppinger, Scott Sullivan, Great Lakes Guitar Pickups, Matt Hart, Enrico Fernando, Moon Guitars, Adam Johnson, Eric Edwards, and David Tyndall.
Yes.
Thank you.
Man,
thank you.
We
Thank you.
love you guys so much. And you know what? I got a note from David Kaminga. I've been in communication with him. He's coming out to see the solar eclipse. In the spring, whenever that happens. I think April.
Okay.
It's April something or other. And he's gonna hang out with us in the studio and join the show for the night.
How cool is that?
Yeah, we're gonna go grab some Happy Fun Times dinners and have a show.
Happy Fun Times dinners.
Yes. That's what they're called, you know.
Yeah.
Really?
If you're
At the
nice,
Happy
Rob,
Fun
you'll get
Time
invited to a
restaurant?
Happy
Yes.
Fun Times dinners.
Okay.
All right, we need to say thank you so much to Mark Bartel for spending the time with us and telling us all about the amazing amps that he's making. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and really appreciate the opportunity, and have a great time out at NAMM.
We will.
Indeed.
And if someone wants more information or possibly wants to buy one of these fine pieces of amplification, where would they go?
It's ToneKing.com.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So where would they go?
It's bartelamps.com or on Instagram at Bartel Amps. There's a whole lot more to the story than we talked about. And, if you're interested, I'd appreciate you checking it out. Give me a call.
Fantastic.
Thanks again.
Tony, how about you?
Just go over to pickguardian.com, check out the pick guards and things that I do. But shoot me an email. Let me know what you're trying to do. I like to do custom stuff.
Yes, indeed. Rob?
Mad Cow Amplification on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
Yep. Moan and Rob.
I don't know.
All right.
I don't even know why he says
You
that.
can shoot me an email, Todd@theguitarknobs.com. You can better reach me by hitting me up on Instagram, DM me at GuitarKnobs. We'd love to hear from you. Tell us what your four on the floor is. Tell us what guitars you love. Tell us what you love or hate about the show. ThrowRocks@Todd.com. And yeah, so there you go. Have a fantastic guitar week, everybody. And subscribe! God.
When did that become a thing?
Yeah, I don't know.
Here, want some of this?
Hop in there. Rob,
Make
your
it
head
big
in there,
mess.
Rob.
Hold on. What do I got to do?
I'm going to rock right now. I'm Rob Bass, and I came to get down.
Just toast.
Did you guys ever clean this place up?
Yeah.
There we go.
I successfully worked octogenarian into a jingle, so
Yeah.
yeah, beat that with a bat.
Did you get gunk all over my wreck or what?
Well, I figured I cleaned it, and then I was like, oh, wait, this is Tony's guitar. I grabbed a hot dog, and I just rubbed it on.
Oh, that's much better. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Can you hear my voice?
I can.
Just wheat toast.
I know when to
Oh, that's
edit.
not for me?
Yay!
Yay. Genius.
Just one cat
Genius.
clap per
Yes.
time.
All hail!
Toast. I was saying.
When we had to break up the studio over COVID, it was rough. We were used to being all in the same room, and you get a vibe when you're in the same room. And then old Moan and Rob shows up, and the vibe changes.
Shut the hell up, Todd.
Yes, I was auditioning for baby commercials.
Tony, the babyface octogenarian. Boom, boom. Okay,
Coffee?
what kind of toast?
Cool.
Yeah, I'm in the zone because I've been listening to your podcast solid all day for 2 days. So I feel like this is just
sorry
another one
about
that I'm listening to. No, it's great.
Wheat toast.
What are you guys talking about?
We're talking about
Intellectual stuff.
Okay,
Which
great.
is an insult to his people.
Oh man.
Who am I sending this to?
Rob,
And away we go.
yeah, anyways.
Right? That's how it works.
That's how it works. Like the great like seeded wheat toast or like the just like wheat flour toast. Yes.
Yes. You are correct, sir.
Here, I'll send it right now.
Send it right now.
Yes.
Hey, Mark.
I don't have all day. Who does? Oh yeah.
I'm awful glad I called.
Like seeds all over it with the butter on it.
Okay, there you go. All right. All right.
Maybe
here
that's what you were thinking.
Tony, shut it. I got to start this or
Well,
Rob's
will
going to
you
start yelling
it?
at me.
Just start it.
And away we go.
Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/The Guitar Knobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.